did not go in this motion. With all the experience the airline industry has had, no, that should be perfect.
Where I got off the plane.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Are we on, Deb? We good to go? Okay. Thank you all for coming. My name's Doug Olson. I'm one of the 3 county commissioners. And this is the second of our small utility group. And the reason we're here is because we said we would a month ago. Here we did. Here we are before the 4th of July. The reason we started these meetings, and maybe this may be the last, or we may continue on over the next few months, is it came to the county's attention that there were quite a number of issues with our small utilities. And without getting too specific, I'll tell you some of the issues, and we wrote them down last time. So the reason we're here, and maybe before we do that, we don't have a really large group, and then we've got some people online. So I'm going to look at this screen here. There are 2 up here, and then the big one up here. You should be able to see it. One of our main presenters today is not able to come over. I think he was a little under the weather yesterday, but let's just start right with this gentleman right here. Just say your name and your agency, and we'll just go around like that. Just take a couple of minutes so we know who's here. Then we'll do the same with the folks who are online. So go ahead.
Collier, Water Utilities, and I'm the deputy director.
Okay.
Chief Copley, Oregon Association of Water Utilities, and I'm the programs manager.
John Castillo, Fairview Water Board Chair.
Fairview Water District.
Thank you.
Mike Austinson, Fairview Water.
And right behind here.
Scott Grabner on with Tone Water.
Mhm.
Clyde Wagner, Waterworks, operator for 7-1.
Mhm.
Todd Johnson.
Judy Hill, Juno Water.
Mike Christie, Port of Tillamook Bay.
Melissa Graper, DEQ.
Michelle Bradley, Port of Tillamook Bay, General Manager and on the Special Districts Board.
Mark Newton with Special Districts Association. I'm a senior consultant.
MJ Bosty, and I live in Coal Creek Water District.
I'm Kathy Staraska, and I'm a board member for the Pacific City Water and Wastewater.
I'm Ann Price. I'm a board member for Civic City Joint Water Sanitary Authority too.
Mary Faith Bell, Tillamook County Commissioner.
David McCall, City Manager for Bay City.
Okay, and then our brains of the outfit is Debbie Garland in the back running things. And we've got several online that we'll hear from. I wonder if we could just go down the line as I see them. Carrie Mock. And Colin, let's go down to you. You'll be having a speaking part here as we go. Just say who you are, would you please, Colin?
Thanks, Commissioner Olson. Good morning, everybody. My apologies for not being there in person. I'm Colin Cooper, Executive Director of the Columbia Pacific Economic Development District, otherwise known as COLPAC.
And he was a little under the weather, and I think he probably didn't want to venture too far from home. So, but he'll have quite a bit to say today. Then next would be, we have somebody, Guy or guest, don't know who that is.
Doug, this is Guy Sievert.
Oh, Guy. Well, we do know Guy Sievert.
Okay. Board member at Nesco Regional Water District.
And he didn't capitalize his name. That's actually his name, but he just said Guy. So I thought it was just a guy. Turns out it is. But he's a longtime member of things around Tillamook County as well. So then Roy Markey.
I think everybody's muted, Doug.
Yeah, well, he may be muted or stepped away from his microphone. So let's see. How about Nate Stice?
Good morning, Nate Stice, Regional Solutions Coordinator of the Office of Governor Tina Kotek. And I did travel far from home, but my car decided not to work up in Seaside. So sorry to not be there in person this morning, and grateful for this series of conversations, Commissioner.
Well, thank you. If you're going to break down, you might as well break down at the beach. Not a problem. Okay. And then Tiffany.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Tiffany Yelton Bram. I'm a manager in the Water Quality Program at Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. And one of my areas that I manage is the Wastewater Operator Certification Program. Good to be here.
Okay, thank you. Did we miss anybody?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just, Carrie Mock, Nia County Water District General Manager.
Oh, good, thank you. Okay, so we have a good group here, and we're going to take no more than 2 hours because you're all busy people and we want you to get out and do whatever it is you do. So we have at least a couple or three people who will give you some updates, but I'm going to just quickly tell you what some of the issues that came up before. And the reason that we had the first meeting and now a follow-up meeting is that there were a number of issues. For example, I will use the Hebo Water District as an example, which is very small. They have fewer than 100 subscribers, and it's actually not a water district. It's a joint water and sanitary authority, JWSA. And there is a distinction, as probably all of you know. So what happened a month or two ago is, for various reasons that are not important today, they terminated their operator, who has since been rehired. The secretary office manager also resigned. And as a result of that turmoil, 4 of the 5 board members stepped down. So they found themselves running package treatment plant and a water system with one person, 1 board member, no certified operator, no nothing. And you can't do that. The state of Oregon takes a dim view of that, and the county got drawn into it only because we ended up appointing 2 more board members to make a quorum. So then they could go back and they rehired the operator. Then they, I think, were in the process and may have already done that, appointing 2 more board members so they'd have a full board. But like many of you, they had difficulties retaining board members. They had difficulties generating enough cash to pay an operator and all those kinds of things. So that came to the county's attention and we took it by default. Another thing that happened in the Beaver Water District, they had some difficulty securing an accounting firm. And so when they finally did, their audits were as many as, I think, almost 5 years late. And the Secretary of State took a dim view of that because you're required under Oregon law, as you all know, to file an audit annually, and that didn't happen. And so that came to the county's attention, and we dealt with that, and they ultimately came up with an auditor, and were able to go forward. I know there's been some other issues on the north side and some questions about keeping board members, getting 5, keeping all 5 around because people come and go, all those kinds of issues. And so we started talking about it, and I thought, well, maybe it would make sense to put all of us in a room and talk about our common problems and see if there's a way forward. So what we want to do today is identify some of those problems and then talk about maybe some solutions, some sources of money. And so the people we've got here, we've got people from Oregon Association of Water Utilities, and then we have Mark again from SDAO, who can help talk about any kind of organization or what's available, the resources there. And then we've got Colin, as you heard, who manages a regional economic development organization, which is basically Tillamook County, Clatsop County, Columbia County, and parts of Western Washington County. And so he's got access to sources of money and other creative ideas and things that can help our smaller organizations. And then this guy here, I went to law school quite a while ago, but he's the county's attorney, and
Ready to stand up.
Oh, Bill Sargent has been legal counsel to the county for 30 years. I would characterize him as certainly one of the experts in the state of Oregon on municipal law. He understands how things work, and he'll be talking today about a memorandum of understanding and then maybe an intergovernmental organization or an agreement of some sort. And some of the legal things that can be done so that you can share resources legally and make those opportunities available, because we're not reinventing the wheel. This is very, very common, and I'm sure our folks that operate statewide will tell you that if you go into Eastern Oregon, they have lots of small districts. You go down in the rural areas of Oregon, and most of Oregon is rural. They have the same issues. And how do you get 5 board members, and how do you keep them? How do you educate them? How do you make it work? How do you afford an operator? I'll go back to Hebo. Hebo has fewer than 100 subscribers. So they don't generate enough cash flow to pay for one employee. Think about that. Their rates are now somewhere around 160 a month, which is pretty high. And Hebo, and I'll pick on Hebo probably all morning. Hebo has, I would say they're not they have a depressed economy, and I'd say the average incomes there are quite modest, meaning that $160 a month for water and sewer is a burden to a lot of those people. And so, and then some of them, I'm sure, fall in arrears and so on. So the district struggles as well as the community, which is unincorporated. And so those are the kinds of things. I know there's been some questions about even Manzanita and Wheeler and their sources of water. And then what if Nehalem is part of that? And I've been asked to come up there sometime in July and look at that situation. I claim no expertise on any of this, except I served on the Pacific City Water Board for a few years. And then I also was part of the conversion over to a JWSA. And that's been, I don't know, 18, 20 years ago, a long time ago. So I know a little bit about how it works. I know what the Oregon drinking water laws are a bit, and I understand how we can work together and some of the legal things. And that's why I asked our attorney to be here. So some of the issues that we recorded before, and Commissioner Bell was good enough to record it, maybe I can prevail on her to take some notes or something here as we go forward today. But one of the issues came up was the rate of inflation and the cost of services. And we're not going to solve that today. And if you want to hear the answers, all you have to do is tune into the presidential debate tonight, because either one of them or both will have all the answers you ever wanted to know. So just do that. One of the issues that came up was certification. How do we get our people certified at the appropriate levels? How do we keep them certified if they leave? How do you backfill? Don't know if we have answers, but that was an issue. State and federal permitting and how long it takes. Finding, as I said, and keeping qualified operators, finding and keeping board members. And in a really, really small community like all of you or most of you, to find 5 people who want to commit to a 4-year term and keep them going is a problem. And things happen, and you get older board members and their life changes, and people move around or get sick or whatever. And so that's been a problem ever since I've been in Tillamook County, which is over 30 years. And it's a problem today, and I don't know that we have answers. Then there's a lack of resources, meaning money and grant money, and even a grant writer to prepare a grant so that you can even get in the queue. So how do you do all those things? And I think when we get to Colin, he can give us some counsel on that as well, and talk about how they do it. Then there's a cost of maintenance and upgrades. We talked about that. Again, we don't necessarily have a solution. Our small districts, that's basically all of us in the room. And then there was mention made of flooding and water system in the floodplain. You know, Tillamook County has more official floods than any other county in Oregon, and has for years and years and years. And what that means, if you're in the lowlands, which nearly all of us are, you may have equipment or your distribution lines are underwater. And so if you've got a lift station that's underwater and something's failing, what do you do about it? I mean, this is a problem that's not unique to the Oregon coast, but in a way it is, because in Pacific City where I live, my home, which is not far from a lift station, is 14 feet above sea level. And it's not uncommon. Those of you who've been down that way, our little airport is under 2 or 3 feet of water about 30 or 40 times a year during high tides and water. And there's a lift station at the end of the airport. And it goes underwater, although they build a mechanism to prevent the water from going in, but I'm not sure it's entirely successful. You could ask And you have flooding problems there, I think, sometimes, right?
Major flood that ruined that lift station, and we did a huge replacement project several years ago, and we've not had flooding issues since, as far as I know.
Good. Well, there are ways to work around them, but there's certainly problems. And then we did a bit of a survey, or just a question at our last meeting on system development charges and how much they are. Because that has to do with what your cash flow is and how do you upgrade and how do you provide for new connections. And they ranged all the way from like $2,246, 8,600, 12,600, 3,800, 28,000, 13,800, 18,300, 9201, 6,900, and 13,000, a little over. So there's a wide range here in the room and across Tillamook County of what you ask your ratepayers to pay if they want to develop a new piece of property. And so is there logic behind that? Probably. Is there other reasons that maybe it's too high or too low or whatever? That's certainly a local decision. And so the last thing I'll say before I go to some of our other people, or maybe so I'll start with our people because that's going to generate some questions. Think about what it is that's your biggest problem and how our group could help. And I'm thinking primarily if you don't own a backhoe and you need a backhoe, where do you get it now? Could you get it from your neighboring jurisdiction? Could you have maybe an understanding, and Bill can talk about that, a memorandum of understanding that you could share people and reimburse? Maybe you could share equipment, those kinds of things. So think about what your obstacles are to getting through the day and the week and the month and the year, either financial or just structural. And I don't know that the county can do anything any more than stand up here and get us together and talk about these issues. And that's kind of what we're doing today. So let's hear from some of the others. In no particular order here. I'm going to call on Mike first. If you want to, yes.
Just a quick question, because you've used the example of if you need a backhoe, where can you find a backhoe a few times? I haven't heard in the introductions online or in person, anybody from the county except the two commissioners. And I know Public Works has equipment, Parks has some equipment. Is the county willing and able to be a partner with things like that? Or are you just looking to facilitate meetings?
Probably both. First of all, the county is not in the utility business, but you're quite right. Public Works has, and I don't think Chris is on. I didn't give him notice. Chris Lady is the director of our Public Works department. Yes, they have quite a bit of equipment, road equipment and backhoes and other things that could certainly help what you do. The answer, I think, and Commissioner Bell can correct me if I'm wrong, if it were available and if there were some understanding of what a transfer of money might be, simply to reimburse the county at some cost, it probably could be arranged, but the county would probably retain its own priority. If they're working on a project, they're not going to stop that project. I don't know, Commissioner Bell, can you add to that?
I think you're right. It have to be an MOU because it's public property, but I think it's worth talking about for sure.
And we do have as mayor or city manager now. He's been a mayor and a city manager, and we're not sure what you are this week. I guess you're the city manager, right? Okay, Bad Bay City. Okay, so yes, and he's very familiar having worked for the county. The county has a lot of equipment, but not a lot of people. I'll just tell you as a historical perspective, the county used to have over 50 people in its public works department. It now has about 24 or 25. So over the years, that has diminished for a number of reasons. The county used to have its own gravel pit and rock crushing equipment years ago, and now it buys it all. So it's not unlike you, except a little larger. We need something done. For example, the striping on the roads is done by Marion County. We contract with them. They come over and stripe the roads. And so that's an intergovernmental activity as well, somewhat like we're talking about today. So let's have Mike come up and just, if you don't mind, just come up here, stand here, and just tell us who you are and what you do and what the resources you might bring to the mix for those who didn't hear it before. And I'll just step aside here.
All right, so I'm Mike Collier, Oregon Association of Water Utilities. I'm the deputy director. And Oregon Association of Water Utilities does like technical assistance and training for water and wastewater systems throughout Oregon. And so through National Water, there is some funding that could be available, but mostly what we would be able to do is, if you have the technical issues, questions, call us out, we'll come out. There's no service charge or anything. We come and help. And then if you did want to go with a MOU or some other agreement with the system, like we're not for mandating any of this. This is all between systems for the systems. We can come out and surely help you guys through that process. And we could give you ideas of what other systems have done, in these agreements, what potentially you guys can do. Also other systems in your area, like if you don't know, like getting to know the neighboring systems is like really important. That's really key. I mean, even as an operator without any agreement, I would borrow a valve and be like, yeah, I'll, pay for one and replace it because I know 3-inch valves on the shelf and you couldn't get one. I mean, it had to be 2 months out before I could get a valve. And so those are the types of things I think that we can help with. And if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Yep.
So they're a nonprofit private organization, but they're funded by member dues. And they have lots of I would say resources, meaning intellectual capacity and connections and those kinds of things, more so than equipment. But it's worth getting there. And I'm going to give you his phone number here. And everybody write this down, or we'll put it in the record and send something out. But you can reach him at 503-837-1212. And remember at the last meeting, we had his boss, Jason Green, who was the executive director of that group, and he used to run the Pacific City Water District before it became a JWSA. So his boss has a connection to Tillamook County. Your office is in Independence, right? But they're statewide. And so they will go all around the state. And if you believe in the philosophy, no point in reinventing the wheel, he's your guy, because I will almost guarantee you that somebody over by Baker City or Burns or Medford or somewhere has had a similar problem, and they've worked through it and found a solution at least that works in some fashion. He would know about it. So again, if you're stumped, call this guy or call your office, and they'll help you through that. So the next person I'll ask just to say a few words, and he was at our last meeting as well, Mark Knutson, he's a PE professional engineer, so we won't hold that against him again. But he understands how these systems work. And he also represents SDAO, which is the Special Districts of Oregon. And they're based in Salem. They're about 6 blocks from the Capitol. And they work, they actually have members, pretty close to 1,000 members of small districts. Probably a lot of you are members. So they have management resources. They also have an insurance arm, a variety of other things that are helpful to all of you in the small districts. So why don't you say what you do, take a few words. If you would.
Well,
Thank
Doug just saved my seat. So
that's, hey, I'll be still.
No, and there's a lot of parallels to what we do as compared to what OAW Mike talked about, which is really helping people come together, work on solutions, meeting either really local needs for a district. I mean, we will help you sort of organize and deliver a project, or we can bring multiple districts together to try and find some regional solutions. That's exactly what we did year and a half, 2 years ago with Long Prairie, Pleasant Valley, South Prairie, and the Port of Tillamook Bay. We brought them together at a table, kind of talked through what their needs were, and then facilitate a process where we not only got some funding lined up, but then coordinated to get consultants on board, and then facilitated the delivery of a study that ultimately helped them negotiate a position with the city of Tillamook in terms of water rates. So it's all about working together. And again, Mike really sort of lined it out in terms of identifying what the needs and issues are, and then facilitating a process to sort of figure out, well, what's the best solution, working together to see if we can find funding to be able to help make that happen. And then just kind of keeping the the foot on the gas to be able to push it forward and get to the answer that hopefully everybody's looking for. So.
Okay, well, he'll be here throughout the morning and if you have questions when we talk about some more specific stuff, he might be your guy. So let me go over to Colin. Would you talk about who you are and what you do, and then we'll come back to you in a few minutes with maybe some more specifics, but give us your 2-minute elevator speech on what it is Colpack does. I'm not sure everybody's familiar with Colpack.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Olson. Again, I apologize for not being there in person. The Colpack is a economic development district. It's one of 12 federally recognized economic development districts that cover the state of Oregon. And our primary purpose for the district that we have that Commissioner Olson described, which is Tillamook, Clatsop, Columbia, and Western Washington County, is to strengthen and diversify the economy. Obviously, infrastructure is key, as everybody in this room recognizes, to having a strong economy and making sure that vibrant communities are occurring, which again is infrastructure. And so that's what we've done historically. We've just celebrated our 30th anniversary as a district, and looking forward to many more years ahead. And one of our focuses has always been infrastructure and helping small communities throughout the district, either through the Community Development Block Grant Program for those entities that qualify, or through working with Business Oregon, DEQ, the Oregon Health Authority, in identifying and successfully getting grants for small communities across the district. Also, we do some of the things that you've heard from the Oregon Water Association and also from Chris in special districts, where we can facilitate conversations and bring together people to work on possible government governance solutions through MOUs, partnerships, IGAs, etc. And so that's what I'm here in the room. I just asked when I heard about the meeting that Commissioner Olson include Colpack so that we can monitor the situation and help where we can. And I will leave it at that for the moment.
All right, thank you, Colin. So let's turn it over now to legal counsel and let him talk about some of the forms that we can work together and the legal side of it, and what you have to do and what you probably shouldn't do. And take as much time as you want, and then we'll kind of go back through and get into a little more detail from the others, and feel free to ask questions as we go. This is a pretty small group. And so if you want to ask an attorney who's currently on the county payroll, you don't have to pay for it. And you do get cookies and stuff in the back. And these are government cookies, by the way, but they're pretty good. So ask Bill something. If you've got a particular one and he needs to talk about it privately with you, he'll make arrangements to do that or point you in the right direction. But if you want to talk about what Oregon requires of all of us in general terms, here's a guy. He's been doing this 30 years. And I don't know what ranking he was in his law school, but it's probably pretty good. And I really, we kid him a lot, but he's truly one of the best known and respected municipal attorneys in the state of Oregon. So here he is.
In order to prep for this meeting, I always go to, rather than the statutes and the case law, I go to the special districts of Oregon's website and need more information on that than I could possibly get from the confusing statutes that I try to work myself.
Bill, can I stop you saying, is that coming through? Okay, you're close enough to your microphone. I want people in line to be able to hear.
Sure. That good enough?
I think so.
Anyway, that's my, if I could recommend anything, I'd say go to their website. They have forms, they have, it's broken down how to do things. I go there all the time when I have a special district concern that comes to the county. Chapter 190 covers, Chapter 190 of the Oregon Revised Statutes covers IGAs, and I presume most of your work are familiar with them. It just provides that units of local government can enter into agreements with other units of local government, and that's you guys, that's cities, that's counties. So David, to respond to you, I mean, theoretically, legally, we could do an IGA with a special district, and in fact, we have done that before. Anyway, And it's really broad what you can do with those IGAs. You can deal with equipment, personnel, officers. It has to provide for the apportionment of funds and things like that, but they're really pretty simple to put together. It's a form, basically, that I think if I was prevailed upon to provide to somebody, I could probably give them a form that they could use and fill in to, work their particular situation out. Yesterday, the Board of Commissioners entered into two intergovernmental agreements, one with the city of Rockaway Beach and one with the city of Garibaldi. And by way of those IGAs, the county provides a deputy sheriff to go there and patrol those two areas. So it's something that county does all the time. The other more complicated situation that usually comes to my attention is when special districts are thinking about merger or about dissolution and formation of a new district. But I mean, that's another possibility that's available to you, but it really is complicated. You probably almost assuredly have to get an attorney involved to prepare the petitions that you have to give to the county and economic feasibility statements. It's really a tough process, but it's one that the county is willing to work with special districts on if they ever come to that situation where they think maybe we ought to just, form a bigger district that will help us to get things done. There's an example of that going on right now, where the city of Garibaldi fire district is wanting to dissolve, and the rural fire district is wanting to resolve and form a new district. So the county is working its way through that. There'll be public hearings, but hopefully it'll get there. The memorandum of understanding is really just a contract. You can always contract with somebody, independent contract, to get something done that you need to do. So I guess that's my spiel, but Commissioner Olson was right. I think if you need some help, I can't provide legal advice for you, but the county's always willing to try to help out if you get into a jam that, you're kind of wondering what kind of agreement maybe we could work out to get this accomplished. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bill. And he'll take questions when we get there. So let me go back then to Colin. Would you take a little more time now and talk about maybe some specifics of what you can do and sources of funding and how that all comes together? Because there's probably nobody in the room who couldn't use more money or has it as part of a master plan, and which by the way, master plans are a creature all of themselves, because I think some of you prepared them, but they usually require some outside help. They can be 10 pages long or 100 pages long, but in order to get a lot of stuff done, you have to show a master plan. So maybe, Colin, you could talk about that and talk about the grant process, maybe in general terms of what's required, and how do small agencies that have almost volunteer help and not much paid help, how do they even get in the queue for these sorts of things? So, Colin, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm happy to, and happy to also share this conversation with some of the experts in the room. We at Colpack, doing economic development for small cities, small special utility districts, or any combination thereof, have routinely basically been a force multiplier for the communities when we're applying for grants, either through federal, USDA, which is the United States Department of Agriculture, or the Economic Development Administration, which is an arm of the Department of Commerce, or through EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, or state agencies like Business Oregon, Department of Environmental Quality. And so what happens, of course, I think everybody in this room recognizes, is that grants, quote, free money, are never free. They take a lot of work and a lot of administration. And I know that I spent 30 years in municipal government, and I would often, sort of like, let's try to avoid the grants because they do take so much work. And that's where Colpack comes in. And we have an expertise in administering grants and helping both apply for them as well as administer them so that, your team can, focus on the important work for which the grant is for. And it might be for technical assistance, design work, might be for assessment for your districts so that you can have everything come up to today's standard that you need. We're looking at strategic or master plans or some combination thereof. And so that's what Colpack has done historically, what we're able to do now today. And you've heard two other organizations that are right there in the room with you that do the same thing. We convene people and bring people together, roll up our sleeves and help with that work. So I think you've got a lot of resources between Colpack and between special districts. Mark, I'll call Mark Knutson out. We've worked a little bit together in the past, and his expertise is very high, having been a part of an organization that combined the resources of many large water districts, both special and municipal districts. So there are solutions out there that could, and it'll be a right size for your circumstances, right? That's what has to be identified first for every individual district, and then you would move forward in whatever manner may make sense for your organization, both organizationally, financially, politically, and we're happy to help. Grant writing is something that Colpack does not do. People often think we actually do the grant writing. That is a special art form of itself. I mean, we'll write small, short grants for ourselves, but typically we have to go find a grant writer that is available to write longer grants. So sometimes we can do it. Sometimes we seek other specific grant writers, and we can help with that as well. And I think that's really, what we're in the room to do, and why I asked to come is just to be familiar with what's occurring here in this conversation and lend help where it is useful. I know that Nate Stice on this call from the Governor's Joint or Regional Solutions team has also, reached out, and he's bringing forward together another organization that might possibly be able to help. So I think you've got a lot of resources from which to pull. It's a matter of determining, what steps you may want to take to move forward. I hope that's helpful, Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. So we'll go to questions in a little bit. But we've got some other people online. I know we had some people from the state, and I see Melanie in the back, or where? Okay, right here. There you are. Why don't you? Melanie? Would you take a couple of minutes to talk about what you do? I'll put you on the spot. Come on up front. And there are a couple others from various state agencies. So once we get everybody to say his part or her part, then we'll do some questions and talk about a way forward, or are we all comfortable, or what? So go ahead.
Thanks, Commissioner. Hi, everyone. Melanie Olson. Sorry to be late to join today, but I'm with Business Oregon, and I'm the Regional Development Officer who works in Clatsop, Columbia, and Tillamook counties. I think what would be useful for you is that as an economic development organization, the biggest part of our budget is around infrastructure funding. So where we can be helpful is around the planning, the design, the construction of a variety of activities, whether that's feasibility studies, rate studies. It can be design projects, it can be consolidations. We've worked with Mark and SEO and OAWU over the years to support a variety of training programs and also just bring some capacity to communities. So we manage about 80 different programs, and I would say probably about 20 of those are focused on infrastructure specifically. So we provide some technical assistance grants to really help communities get started. And I would recommend that if you don't have a feasibility study or a master plan, that you start there. If it hasn't been updated recently, take that first step and do that. We have $20,000 technical assistance grants to help you get going if you're a special district. If you are a private organization or a nonprofit, there's also resources available through one of our federal programs. So I'm happy to talk with you at any time. I think probably a one-on-one conversation would be best to start. And then also bringing in Melissa Graper with DEQ, as they have some resources as well. And we can just begin to sort of map out what are your high priority issues, what do you need to focus on, where do you begin? Because oftentimes that's the hardest step, is just figuring out kind of where to go and who are those partners. But we do work collaboratively with Colin and others to try to just develop a roadmap for you so that you can get the assistance you need in the right time and not have you calling every single person in the room trying to figure out where do I go. So happy to help with that. Colin, I think there's no wrong door, if you will, and we want to help bring some of those resources to the communities. So please reach out to us at any time. And I live in Tillamook, so I'm nearby and happy to just come to a board meeting or jump on a call. But is that what you were looking for, Commissioner?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry to put you on the spot, but as you all can hear, she's very good extemporaneously, and, you know, my view on these things, there's absolutely no reason to reinvent the wheel. Everybody here has similar problems. And by the way, when you look, the county has a GIS system, geographical information system. There's on the two sides, there's maps. One is of all the water and the other one's of all the wastewater. And so if you want to get up close, that's as big as we can print, but it's actually pretty descriptive, and you'll see your organization on there probably. If not, then we may have another problem. We don't know you exist. That's a kind of a separate issue, but maybe that's a good one. The government doesn't know you're there. So you might have a look at that. So we had a couple of people online there. I'm wondering, Jamie, I see you're on, you joined. Jamie is with the health department. And she's the water quality, well water and all that sort of thing. Jamie, could you introduce yourself and just say what you do?
Yeah, I'm Jamie Craig and I work for Tillamook County Community Health Centers. I'm the environmental health program manager. And I am kind of an in-between between the state drinking water program and the groundwater systems that are regulated in Tillamook County. So I do their surveys. So drinking water systems have rules based on providing clean drinking water to community members. And I go through on a 3 or a 5 year basis, depending on the survey. And we go over a whole list of things that they have and requirements that they have to meet state drinking water standards. And then I try to help them figure out if there's deficiencies, how to correct them, and or work with the state to get them back into compliance if there are deficiencies. I'm kind of the local contact going in between there. I don't do a lot with, the state drinking water program has funding and they have resources for different systems, but I work with the system and I work with DEQ and I work with Melanie, and if we kind of all push each other in the same direction to try and help the systems get to where they need to be.
Thank you, Jamie. We had one or two others from the state there. Was it Nate? Not sure who else.
Tiffany's on the screen here.
Oh, Tiffany. Yeah, go ahead and tell us what you do at DEQ, please, and your role in any of these issues.
Sure, thank you. Again, I'm Tiffany Yelton Bram. I manage the Wastewater Operator Certification Program for Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. And what that is it's a set of state rules developed from state statute that basically say that if you have a sewage treatment plant, we need one person per shift to be certified by the state. And what that means is that we have looked at their education, their experience, and that they've passed a test to be certified at a level at or greater the same classification that we've given the sewage system. Meaning if you've got a pretty small sewage treatment plant, you might be level 1, and so you need a level 1 operator. Again, it's one person per shift. So that program's been in existence since the early 1980s. There's about 1,400 people who have certifications at different levels in the state of Oregon. And we are currently doing some rulemaking to open the door a bit wider encourage more people to get into this industry. And that's it in a nutshell. Happy to take questions.
Any questions? Well, we'll get to questions, and then we had someone else on, Nate, did you talk about your role? I think we talked about the Hebo situation, as I remember a while back.
Sure, Commissioner. I'm the Governor's Regional Solutions Coordinator for the North Coast, and that means that Melanie and Melissa keep me in line. I run a cross agency team that goes to communities and helps them with their community and economic development issues, helps them reach their goals. I would say that Melanie and Melissa are the more direct points of contact for infrastructure funding and regulatory issues related to a lot of what you all do with water and wastewater. I have been with a few colleagues thinking a lot more about some of the larger issues around governance and structure with water and wastewater systems, and thinking about what tools, the other tools the state might bring to bear. So I'm mostly here listening and learning today.
Anybody else we've missed who has something to say about how business is done? Okay, so let me, let's take some questions and see if we can get some of you to respond. And so I'll just start with one. How many of you have a full board? Okay, so how many of you don't? So even looks like slightly more. So what are you gonna do about it? What do others do if you find yourselves with, you're supposed to have 5, let's say, and you only have 3, so you can technically conduct business as you have a quorum, but what are you doing besides advertising? Do you do word of mouth or what? Let's see if, tell us what you do. Well, nobody's speaking up. Maybe that's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Bill every customer sees, says right at the top. Join the club.
And of course, the top.
One of my constituents, and we've been drilling and beating and knocking, and nobody's interested. Just apathy. It's the main problem.
Yes.
Go for it.
I was gonna defer to Mark, but Special Districts actually has a whole thing on their
Yeah.
website on how to recruit.
Yeah, you talk about our website. We have a whole page. We have templates of how to do the press release and the announcement. We've got information in terms of briefing on the responsibilities that are involved. And so we try to really facilitate this, recognizing that this is a huge need. But there is a challenge that there are members of the community that just simply don't want to spend time. And that's where, as Mike explains, a little arm twisting, a little cajoling, appealing to people's sort of commitment to serving the community is really key.
But you can't compel them, obviously. So how big a problem is it? You had the majority here said you don't have a full board currently. How long have you gone without a full board? Yeah. I'm not surprised that, and I mean, things happen. I know Pacific City had a very competent member of the board that I've known for many years, and she had some medical difficulties and ultimately passed away. And obviously you knew nothing about that, but that left a hole for better part of a year, as I recall. And I mean, you all have the same thing. You have people that life circumstances enter in. So I don't have a good solution. I'm just wondering what others have done. And like you say, there's some counseling there, there's help, there's things you can do, but you can't compel somebody to volunteer to do something. So would it make sense then if you had, if you combined something, and I'm not suggesting that's a solution to anything, but if you had a larger district with twice as many ratepayers, would you have an easier time to get 5 people? Maybe, maybe not. You know, and there are pros and cons on that. So what's another problem that seems common? How many of you could put your hands on a backhoe tomorrow if you had to have one? Okay, how many couldn't? You couldn't, do you know how to drive a backhoe? You don't. I don't either, but I'd like to try. Anyway, so I think it'd be fun. Okay, so you've heard, the county has equipment and would be perfectly willing to consider working with any organization, subject to some kind of a memorandum of understanding that would protect liability and maybe exchange of $100 or something like that. So it's out there, but I know you have to do it. So when you have to dig a hole now, you have to dig up a water line because the water's coming out of the ground where it shouldn't. So what do you do? Call a contractor. And if they're not available and the water is still coming out of the ground, what do you do?
Other contract.
Call another. Okay, well, and that's no doubt what a lot of you are doing. So what are your biggest 2 or 3 concerns, you know, and I don't know that we'll solve anything here today. The whole idea was talk about what resources are out there in terms of getting money or help or equipment or the legal side of what the steps you have to follow to go there. Michelle?
Just put your last question in context. What if your water line is under a county road? Does there need to be an MOU or will the county help?
I think the county will help, but I don't see any reason why we couldn't develop. No reason we couldn't dig up a county road if water's coming.
Situation.
I'm sure that Chris Lady help you out.
Well, no, I'm asking for others, so, yeah.
I have a question.
Because it's not just a simple,
Well, I could almost,
it's gonna impact county roads, then.
I can almost guarantee you if it were in a county right away, the county would show up and dig it up and, you know, help fix it. And
So,
because.
I mean, people might be not aware that that's a connection that
Mhm.
the county most likely would step up and help.
The county would, and the county owns a lot of property, and I think there's 280 some miles of right of way in the county. So there's some probability if your water lines or sanitary sewer run next to the roads or across the road or under it. I think that standard practice is you don't go under a road if you can help it. You go parallel to it and do whatever. But so what's another problem that we might have a solution or a way forward or people to talk to?
It's the first step if someone needs a rate study. Say they haven't raised their rates in 15
And
years.
that was a question came up before. How can you help with the rates or a study or what others do and how they did it?
Yeah, so we can give pointers and lead them and help. And then if they want us to do it ourselves and not help them to do it themselves, we can do it.
Yeah, so we have some programs like rate studies that we can do turnkey for a fee, but then we have programs like CERT run program that can come in and help train the system operators to do their own rate study.
How long does a rate study usually take?
Depends on the size and complexity of the system.
So typically it would be 90 days or longer. And then when you say, okay, you're not recovering your costs or you not establishing a sinking fund for capital or whatever reveals, then you step aside and it's up to the local board then to say, we adopt it or we're gonna do something about it. He's gonna put it on the shelf.
Different options and then it's.
Sure. Okay, what else? Yes, Mark.
Another issue that OAW, I think, has at least helped in the past is leak surveys. I mean, there are organizations that pay a lot of money for producing water that goes nowhere, that doesn't go through a meter. And being able to do a survey to identify where those leaks are and being able to get them fixed is really, I think, ultimately a money saving strategy as well as a resource. And so they've got some great resources. They've helped out other organizations. I think it's for a fee, if I'm not mistaken, but.
Like the rate study, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Like the rate study, we can do a fee service where we come in and do a full leak survey, and that's for a fee, but for free, we can come in and help train the operators to do their own.
Yeah.
So that's honestly what we prefer.
So what's the current standard? I'm trying to remember, like 15% or less maybe is a standard. So if you got 1 million gallons and you deliver and charge for 850,000, so you've lost 150,000 gallons somewhere. Is that acceptable in the business?
It happens more often than not, and typically what we want to do is when we first come in and, because everyone says water leaks, really it's unaccounted for water. Frequently we'll come in, we'll find out the meters are 20 years old and they're only reading at 78%. So their loss may actually just be because their cash registers, their meters are not registering high enough. So we evaluate that, try to figure out what the actual issue is. And then if it is leak detection, we've got some fairly sophisticated leak detection equipment we can come out like to help train people how to use it and encourage maybe some lower cost options.
That's Melanie.
Business Oregon can help pay for those leak surveys or leak detection. There's a biannual application process, and if you're interested, just reach out to me. But it's up to $20,000, whether you're a special district or your private system, and especially if you have really high leakage and it's draining your bank account because you're buying water from someone else. Definitely reach out to us. And then real quickly, if I can mention, Commissioner Olson, is everyone aware of the Circuit Rider program available through Oregon Health Authority? That's a free assistance, 10 hours. It can go more with approval, but they can help with a lot of different issues, especially emergencies or grant writing applications. They can help with testing. And there's a whole list on the Oregon Health Authority website. If you just Google Oregon Health Authority Circuit Rider and start with them, we have found that that's been valuable assistance at no cost.
I frequently get phone calls from all around the state from districts that are looking for help, and that's really where we dispatch them to. Is they need some technical assistance, and the Circuit Rider program is a tremendous resource.
So Melanie, when you do the master plan funding, all of these are pieces and parts of the master planning, right? So if you only have 20,000 and it can go to leak detection, or it can go to a rate study, or it can go, is that multiple applications?
So it depends. It depends on where you're at. I mean, we try to meet you where you're at. If you have high water loss, you probably don't need to go through a whole master planning process. You probably really need to focus on getting your water loss under control. So we will often just fund a standalone project. However, depending on your organizational status, we might be able to combine that with other resources, maybe from DEQ or with Colin's help or with the Circuit Rider. So we really try to develop the roadmap for how to get you where you need to be, and just try to maximize those resources. It's not a one time to the funding trough, if you will. It is we try to just resolve the problem. So if it requires multiple investments, then we try to help you with that. And we do have loans if you exceed the maximum amount of grants that are generally very favorable interest rates at reduced, interest rates, and then loan term, so short term. But ultimately, we want to help you be successful and address whatever issue you're facing.
Question online, Guy Sievert, I can tell you a little bit about him if you don't know him. He's a good guy, a guy. He lives down in Nesco, and he is a retired educator. I think he was the second in command at the University of Portland for quite a number of years. And he's on a water board in Nescoin, which is the same as the others in the county. And he also sits on the planning commission, and he's an educated, smart guy. So what can you bring to here? And I know you have some issues that we talked about before with neighboring water districts, including a private one. So Guy, go ahead. Did I get that the way you wrote everything? Did I say it all right?
You're muted, Guy.
You're gotta click your unmute there, Guy. There you go. That might do it.
So a couple of things that our Nesco Regional Water District is doing. our general manager, who is licensed, has been working with actually some of the smaller districts in South County. We helped, and I think Commissioner mentioned that the Beaver district has now has a licensed operator. That was partly due to the work that our general manager did in helping that person get to that point. We also work with a couple other smaller districts and give assistance. We have been asked by 2 small private districts in South County to have us, in fact, operate their water systems. And these are very small, 70, 80, hookups each. And actually, one of them is contiguous to the north part of our district, and the other private district is contiguous to that one. So our board is considering in different ways in which we could serve those districts. So we got a grant to hire a firm to come and give us options about what is the best way for our district to serve those 2 small private districts. So we'll be working on that in this coming year. Again, this is at their request for us. And so we're not sure, should we go to expand? It's possible for us to expand our district to include those 2 small private districts, or should we just contract with them? They're not a governmental agency, so that's not a path that we want to take. So anyways, we're at work with that. The other thing that we're doing is we're working with an attorney to look at our personnel policies to see, to make sure that when our employees go out and help other districts, that we can do that in a way that protects our own district, liability and other kinds of things. And of course, you're dealing with compensation and other kinds of things that may be involved. So we're taking a look at our personnel policies to see if we can have language in there that allows our employees to help other districts in a way that doesn't expose our own district for any particular liability or whatever. So anyways, those are a couple of things we're doing. We're also faced with, we're a regional water district. We were formed out of, I think, 5 or 6 other small private districts years ago. Some of those small private districts are getting to the point where they're going to have a lot of infrastructure needs because the infrastructure was built by a developer or whatever. And so, we're putting together, we have a strategic plan to take a look at about upgrading our infrastructure over the years. So anyways, a couple of things I thought I'd bring up, and in ways in which our district is trying to look at serving other small private water districts in the area.
Thank you, Guy. Nate, you had your hand up?
I think it's Jamie Craig.
Jamie, got your hand up too. Okay, maybe they forgot to do it. So
No, I didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I just wanted to go back and talk about Melanie and her
Sure.
commenting on Circuit Rider program, which is great. Thanks, Melanie, for bringing that up. And I put the link in the chat. But that the state or the the Circuit Rider program will help people with populations under 10,000, and it's 10 free hours of assistance. So it's not unlimited. Just so you guys are aware of that. And I know a lot of people do use that. And then I wanted to make a comment about Guy. The state drinking water program changed some classifications here in the last couple of years for Oregon very small systems. So an Oregon very small public system is at least 4 connections at this point, 4 to 25. So private systems the state is looking at all of these, may actually qualify to be a state drinking water system. And so with that, there are regulations around that. And so when very small systems want to merge and they call themselves private, if you start merging and you guys create bigger systems, then your classification may change and that may require different or more monitoring. So if you guys have questions about that, or if anybody has questions about that, like I can work with you to figure that out.
And that's why we're hiring a firm to give us
Sure.
the options. Yeah.
Well, there are
Thanks.
a lot of private, well, I don't know if a lot is the right word. There's a number of private systems. I'm thinking of at least 3 in South County, including the 2 we mentioned. One is around, I think, Christian Camp Wainema. And then Tierra Del Mar has a private system that's been in operation for I don't know how many years. And I'm sure there are others.
The one in
So-
Nescowen is not a private system. It is a state-run system.
Well,
And
the
I know
one-
that the operator just passed away. Is that correct, Guy?
No.
Not
And
that one.
you're
By
talking about-
Wainema. Pardon?
Yes, in not in Wainema, in Horizon View. And that's the 2, Horizon View and Wainema are the 2 small private districts. And you're right that the Horizon View operator just passed away.
And that is a state-run system. And so is Wainema. And I do both of those.
So we, again, we just got a grant. We're looking to hire a firm to give us options on that. And maybe we need to be talking about involving you in that.
That would be great.
Okay, so let me ask about another subject, and then if you've got anything, let's hear it. We've got some time left. Your watershed, is there any need, and I know there's at least one in Tillamook County that wants some protections for their watershed. Now, that's meaning not necessarily well water, but surface water, where the water comes, off various creeks and then is collected and then maybe treated in some fashion or not. But they're wanting to talk about some means of protection, meaning no trespassing or some defined boundary or otherwise. How do you keep people out and leave it to nature or whatever? I'm no expert on that at all. Is that an issue for any of you in the room? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, we draw water off Beaver Creek and Beaver, and the creek's actually been moving away from our intake over the last couple of years. And so every summer when the water drops down, I've got to redirect the creek. And it would be nice to look into like a permanent solution for that. Because the water comes up, washes it out, washes my little diversion dams out. Then I got to go rebuild them a couple weeks later when it drops back down.
Well, you're messing with Mother Nature is what you're doing.
Exactly. So
who else has a similar problem? And we do have some comments there. Let's go up to Tracy Bean. I'm not sure who that individual is.
Hi, my name's Tracy. I'm with the Necharts Water District. And our watershed is in Stimson. So we've got logging, clear cutting, and we've started having some conversations with various individuals about what we could do to protect the watershed, possibly purchase land. It's very early on discussion, but a property that adjoins or is adjacent to a property that we own for ours. So we have surface water and groundwater. We use a spring and creek. And recent property just came on the market that borders or might slightly overlap our spring area. I'm not a water expert, but we've just started some conversations and exploration about how we can own the property.
Well, thank you. I'm a little bit familiar with that. Bev Stein, when a former Multnomah County Commissioner who lives there, called on me the other day and we visited about that. And I think Commissioner Bell, didn't she talk with you as well?
Yes, but Bev's in Cape Mears. So Tracy might be talking about a different system.
Different one, okay. Yeah.
Commissioner Olson?
But very similar, privately owned. There's logging and commercial logging activity. And so when you get into, if you're a surface water source, there are some issues there maybe, and when you're a small group like we all are, is that something that needs to be taken up in some fashion? Because I know City Rockaway Beach for some period of time has had concerns, maybe not issues, about their watershed, which is directly behind them up in the mountains. So any more comments on watershed protection? How many of you have surface water as
Commissioner Olson.
your main source? And how many have well water? How many have both? Okay, Pacific City, as Ann will tell you, has 6 wells. I think there's still 6, aren't there? And then there's a treatment plant on Little Horn Creek, which is year round. And I remember when that went in, they had like a 6-week window when the fish weren't moving. And so, I mean, it gets pretty delicate on how you do that. So I'm going to leave that on the list of things just to talk about surface water protection. Commissioner?
Commissioner Olson? Commissioner Olson?
Oh, Guy, oh yeah, I better pay attention here. Guy, go ahead.
So I just wanted to say that our regional water district, the board voted 5-6 years ago. I was not on the board at the time. After a number of presentations from DEQ and OHA and other people, the board decided that and voted that we should own or control all of our source water area, which is a couple thousand, 2,000 acres roughly, most of which was industrial timber. So the board has been working to accomplish that and has purchased a couple of properties within the source water area. We are actively negotiating with some other private landowners to purchase their property. The biggest one is Weyerhaeuser. For us, it used to be Forest Cap, and they've kind of switched around. Hancock, I guess it was Hancock, the last one, and they switched with Weyerhaeuser. But we have actually been in meetings with Weyerhaeuser. Weyerhaeuser indicated that they were interested in selling the land that is within our source water area. And so those are things that the board has voted to as a strategy to protect us, protect our area. We've had, as I'm sure others who depend on source water, when you have activities, logging that end up in slides that block off some of our flow, a lot of turbidity, whatever it may be. Of course, when they spray, you have to shut down your intake, things like that. So we're working to, as I said, owner control. We're working with the land trust to help us with those transactions. One of the things that has really helped us, especially with working with someone like Weyerhaeuser, is the new private forest accords that the legislature passed and are in effect. And it really puts a lot of limits on what the industrial timber people can do. And I think they're re-looking at their land within source water areas to say, you know, what's the calculation here in terms of what's the value in terms of timber, because the restrictions on logging within streams that feed into your source water areas have really been increased. So anyways, this is something to think about. We are actively pursuing the ownership of all of our land in the source water area.
Thank you.
Real quick on the source water, HC for surface water systems. There are freaking grants available or coming up for land purchase or agreements with landowners. And a good contact for you for that would be Julie Harvey over at DEQ, your source water manager over there.
We've been working with Julie Harvey for years. Actually, part of my, after I did retire, as Commissioner Olson mentioned, retired from the University of Portland, and we started a group that was doing consulting on source water protection, and we have worked with DEQ and Julie and others for a long time. We actually, my partner and I did a presentation several months ago up in Seaside on source water area protection at the invitation of DEQ. And we're looking at ways in which using the revolving fund and the fact that OWEB is now kind of come back to one of its original things with drinking water protection, and there might be ways to combine the loan program with some of the new acquisition programs that OWEB's doing. So there's a lot of opportunity that's happening here lately.
Thank you. Let's see, we've got one more, let's see, Tracy has a hand up.
Jamie.
It's Jamie again. So if you're a state-run system, you can reach out to the regional geologist, and he has ways or guidance on how to protect drinking water sources from contamination. This is a question we ask on all surveys, and most people do not. They just don't say they don't have the time, or they're not interested. So I'll put that info in the chat as well, and you all can reach out to him and see what they can do for you.
Okay, thank you. So we've got some time left. What other pressing issues that we could all talk about? And I think maybe when this is, when we're done here, we'll talk about if we want to meet again or just meet as necessary. And I'm thinking if I put together a list of resources, we've heard a lot of names and numbers and people who have various specialties. Maybe that would be helpful to everybody to say, okay, you want to know something about watershed protection, here's a couple of names and numbers. Mr. McCall.
Yeah, sure. I'm wondering if we've talked a lot about water. Wondering if we can shift the conversation a little bit downhill to the wastewater side. I'd be curious to know what's available study-wise, support-wise, funding-wise for things like I&I studies. Because I think anybody who operates a wastewater treatment plant around here knows that I&I is one of the biggest factors we have, and reducing I&I is very important because it rains a lot.
So there's a good question then, aside from the other organization matters and legal matters. And how about wastewater? How many of you operate a wastewater plant in one form or another? Not as many. We're a rural area. I think we have probably more septic systems per capita than a lot of areas, but so who has some expertise in wastewater and could answer that question or add to the conversation? Tiffany.
Hi. So one of the other areas that I manage, excuse me, is permits and compliance for Northwest Region. We, in our NPDS permit, so if your sewer system is discharging to surface water, we do require that an I&I plan exist, because that's true. All pipes are going to leak. And so if there's a certain amount of leakage that just happens, but you want to keep an eye on it so it doesn't get to be a problem and too much clean water going into your sewage treatment plant. So a resource for you in looking at what a good I&I plan should entail is to talk to your compliance inspector, the person who works with you to determine your compliance with that permit. So for Northwest Region, there's two people that do most of that work. That's Mike Pinney, he's an engineer, and Randy Bailey. And I manage both of them, so you can reach out to me. And we do technical assistance in addition to doing our compliance inspections. So we're happy to be helpful that way. I also know our colleagues at OAWU are really helpful, and the conferences that they put on are really great sources of information as well. I think there's been leak detection and I&I topics in the past at those conferences. Thanks.
So we do have a smoke tester that we can use to find their I&I test.
So we've got 2 smoke blowers and we've got 2 water technicians that we can send out in the field to help the operators how to use the smoke blowers.
Okay, Colin, could you come back in and have you had any experience, not just in Colpack, but you've been around this stuff for years, with wastewater in particular, that the conversation we just had about bringing expertise and maybe even the financing side of it when you need a new package plant or whatever. Can you give us your background on that?
Well, my background professionally is 30 years as a city planner, is working with subject matter experts, but and making sure that, we help them and advance planning. But when we're going back to look at, say, I&I or other things, the Colpack toolkit is similar to that of water going to DEQ and Business Oregon. I know, and you've got the expert in the room, so I don't want to speak for her. I know that there is a water wastewater funding program, but I'm not sure if that does technical sort of I&I stuff versus design and construction. So I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Melanie, but I don't know if you've got a wastewater technical program as well. And so Colpack has helped though with the larger pieces on wastewater with, again, funding at a larger level and doing grant administration. So that's where we come in is, if you're your water district board says, hey, we want to go for this grant or this loan, but particularly a grant, but we don't have the expertise or the bandwidth to monitor it and apply for it. We're the resource for you within the district. And I think you've got a couple other resources, but we're certainly one. And so I think that, again, similar to the water systems, you have to have a good assessment of what's going on, make sure that your master plan is up to date, and that you've got a strategy to continue to implement and maintain your system. And so I think it's about, understanding those first steps, getting to the technical side of it.
Thank you, Michelle.
To tap onto what Colin was just saying, Melanie's always the first thing that I go to. She's always the first call. She's part of the regional solutions team. She will get Melissa involved. Then Melissa will get Jamie involved. I mean, it depends on what it is. Right now, we distribute city water, but we also have our own NPDES permit. And Tiffany's been not all heroes wear capes, but we've had a hard time getting through that permit process. But we sat down through Melanie, brought DEQ in, and we ended up getting funding from DEQ for that, which I was expecting to go through the LBDD's wastewater. But it all circles around Melanie. Swirls. Well put. That's right.
So what else can we talk about here? We've got a few minutes, but we can bring up any subject you want. And we've tried to focus on board members and cash flow and just how do you hold things together and then how do you work with your neighbors and share resources. And then now the sewer issue or sanitary sewers and wastewater. And, we've all got a lot of common problems. What haven't we touched and how can the county as a facilitator, how can we get some expertise that says, okay, here's a way forward or here's what they're doing over on the east side of Oregon, and so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Ann, let me go to Ann first.
One of the issues from the previous meeting that was discussed with, and that is on the list here too, is finding and keeping qualified operators. And that prompts a question to me if in the assembled masses here, anyone has conducted a salary study for operators of water or wastewater plants or thought about doing that, or if any of the agencies we have represented are in a position to do that kind of thing for small districts.
The Oregon Employment Department does that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just saw that yesterday.
Yeah. Okay.
I can show you where to go to look at that.
Oregon
Have
Employment.
any of you done your own on that? In other words, you've got an idea what the market is for, and as I understand, there are at least 3 levels, level 1, 2, 3 for operators. And what I did hear from one district is they were paying somebody $20 an hour. And, I don't know what that wage is, but $20 an hour is starting wage at McDonald's. And I'm not really sure you're going to get a qualified operator long-term for $20. They may take it until they find something better. So what are you people paying now for your operator, say a level 1 or level 2? What is the current wage? Nobody knows. Maybe that's why you don't have any. You don't know.
It's all over the board, it's all over the city, and another resource that I would suggest to look at is League of Oregon Cities website. They do a salary survey every 2 years.
Yes.
all over.
And most cities have a treatment plant of some sort, the bigger ones anyway. So what's, yeah.
Commissioner Olson?
Council of Governments has done several, or done wage studies for several cities in the area, so they have information available as well.
So how do you people who run a wastewater plant, do you contract it or are they a regular employee? And if they're an employee, do they have any benefits?
Ours is a full-time employee, and we have a second employee, but we also, he doesn't just run our wastewater plant. He also does the water, our septic receiving station, and multiple other things.
And you're a little bigger than some of these other ones that are quite small.
Service less than 100. I mean, we just have the industrial park that we service. About 50 water connections or so.
So how much trouble is it here? You know, Tillamook's labor market can be robust in some areas and quite thin in others. What is the labor market for a certified operator here? Do you know, any of you? Probably not that good. Oh, Guy, you're got your hand up again. Go ahead.
Right. Well, actually today at our board meeting this afternoon, we are considering the salary of our general manager, and we asked special districts if they had any information or collected any data on salary ranges. And so actually, I just got an email during this meeting from a special district saying they have no data, and their recommendation is to check with HR departments in other districts. Well, that's not really that helpful. So special districts turned out to be not a good source. We pay over $50 an hour for our main operator, though, roughly.
And all of these are districts with budgets. You can always go on and look at the budget under personnel for what they pay.
Yeah. I would also, not to defend special districts, but I would have been surprised if the guy would have gotten information from SDAO. I was out of needles and pins waiting to hear what he was going to say. But the really good news is that if you are a member of SDAO, we have a sort of partnership relationship with an organization called HR Answers. And if you're a member of SDAO, you can work with HR Answers, which are specialists that do just this kind of work at a heavily discounted rate to be able to get that kind of study, and not just the salary survey, but also a class comp study if you have, making sure you've got comparables within your organization based on qualifications. So there's a lot of resources that are available through SDAO, but it does cost a little bit of money, but it's a heavily discounted rate.
I would also add that price is going to really be dictated by the certification level that your system requires. Like Frank said, there's 4 levels in distribution and treatment. So a small system, I'll use Beaver as an example. They may be a fairly small system, but they have a surface water treatment plant which automatically requires the treatment too, and the filter goes. There is very few operators in the state of Oregon that hold a filter. It is the hardest certification to pass, but that's going to dictate some of that wage as well.
Oh, Melanie.
Can I just put in a plug for the Oregon Infrastructure Summit, which is September 24th and 25th in Portland at the Sheridan Airport, or the Sheridan near the airport. At that session, there will be workshops on how to apply for, manage state and federal funding resources. There will be some sessions on housing. There will be just technical assistance across the board. So it'd be a great opportunity to network and learn about some of those funding resources and receive some of the information that you're probably looking for. We do have scholarships available. And so if you'd like to send someone from your board or staff, I know it's hard for operators to get away, but we will cover the cost of that registration fee. And if you're interested in that, reach out to me. But we do this in partnership with USDA Rural Development, DEQ, and a few others. So it's sort of a one-stop shop. Great opportunity.
And with USDA there, they also usually talks about combining, larger regional type approaches. Yeah, which seems to fit this pretty well.
good information. Thank you. So what other issues are on your mind that you need some collective help? We've got a lot of smart people in the room, including our legal counsel. So, you know, you might as well take advantage of the collective knowledge here and not reinvent the wheel. That's right.
I want to address a kind of philosophical issue, and we touched on this a little bit last time. But I think a big part of the nature, I've been in the water industry for 40 years, and a big part of the nature of the people that are driven and attracted towards this tend to be pretty independent folks, and they want to get in and solve the problem and take care of it themselves. And that's an awesome quality. But the translation to that is they don't ask for help until it's too late. And what my message would be to really think in terms of not waiting until it's broken, to begin to recognize that we can have these solutions, that we work together to find ways to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our organizations, but they take time. And so ask for help, begin the process of getting the people around the table to start comparing notes, to figure out where are we going to go, how are we going to get there, what resources can we get. I mean, it can take months just to line up the funding to get the study done that might take another year. And so start thinking in terms of it's okay to ask help, and begin that process way before it hits the fan, because once it's broken, it's really hard to recover, and it's going to cost a lot more in the long run. So you got to kind of get beyond the philosophy of, oh, we're just here, we're going to keep it cheap and dirty, and we're just going to get by. That's a philosophy that will crash and burn in the long run. And so ask for help early. That's the message.
Well, good point, and I would agree with that, and I think maybe Hebo is a good example. I use them again is for whatever reason, and I was not at their meetings. They did crash and burn, and as I said earlier, they ended up with only one board member left and no operator and no office help at all. And my next move the next morning, had we not got a couple of people willing to step up and keep things going, my next move was to go down and have a locksmith change the locks on everything and see if we could seize a bank account or freeze it somehow on behalf of the county. And it didn't come to that, but you know, that's absolutely the last thing anybody in this building wants to do. We're not, you know, you people are independent. You have your own boards, your own financing, your own budgets. And the county, the reason I put these meetings together is to talk about that stuff and see exactly what you just heard. How can we avoid crashing and burning? And, you know, we all serve exactly the same people. The people in Hebo are also taxpayers in Tillamook County. And all of your ratepayers are residents and taxpayers in Tillamook County and the state of Oregon, for that matter, and America, if you want to take it up another level. So we're all trying to do the same thing. And those are good words of advice. If you've got some issue, you know, you don't have to bring it up here in front of all your colleagues, but maybe you could talk to SDA, or if you talk to me, I'll see if I can point you in the right direction and not publish a memo on what is going wrong. You know, we'll keep it to your issue and see if we can get some help. So I see the role of the county simply as a facilitator or a convener of resources, which we've done today. We've got, you know, 8 or 10 people in the room that have been down this road a while and been around many years. They've answered in a lot of these questions. So what other issue do we have here? We don't have to go till 11. We can wind up here pretty soon, but I'm thinking that we don't necessarily need another meeting like this, although if we did have one, I think maybe I'll do some feedback and summarize and maybe talk to people, and maybe we could have one gathering again after Labor Day in September, you know, just find a time like this and meet here at the library or somewhere and see if we've got any other issues that we know about. Is that makes sense? You know, I don't need meetings if you don't need them. But I've seen some value today simply in talking about different issues and putting them out again and some advice from people who've been around 40 years. So let me ask Commissioner Bell, if put her on the spot again, which I like to do because she's pretty good at it, speaking extemporaneously. What do you see as value out of this working group? You've been around a while.
Well, a lot of solutions discussed here and a lot of connections. I really appreciate, I'm interested in all the information in the chats. And I think your suggestion about compiling this list of resources is really valuable. Some interesting questions have been raised, like since this gentleman talked about a surface water system and having to divert Beaver Creek to get the water, that's fascinating to me and deserves some more attention. I don't know what a long-term solution is, but clearly you need one. And also, I suggest that our next meeting be a barbecue that you cook for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
As long as the county buys the groceries, we could do, we will find a time. We've got some more, Jamie, your hand is up again.
I just wanted to, in general, most water systems know this, and I know that this takes time and it takes resources, but all water systems are required to have at least 4 things, which is a written coliform sampling plan, a map of your distribution system, and there's some requirements on that as well, but an operation and maintenance manual or other written procedures and an emergency response plan. And the struggle that I run into quite often with systems is, number one, it's not updated, and number two, it's not written for somebody to come in and pick it up and know what to do in an emergency situation. So somebody passes away or somebody fires somebody or any other crisis. And so I'm urging systems, water systems, and water treatment systems need protocols as well, that when you're supposed to update these yearly, that when you create these documents, that you write them in such a way that if somebody said, I'm done with this, I'm walking out the door tomorrow, somebody else could come in, a board member, your administrator, the fiscal person could come in and be like, all right, this is where I need to start, and this is who I need to contact to help me. Does that make sense?
Yes, it certainly does. Good advice. And so we'll make note of that as well. So let's do this. And as a final round, let me go to the people that we invited in for sure to give them a minute or two to summarize what their best advice is and their resources. So I'll go back the way we started with Mike. Do you want to stand up for a minute and tell us again who you are and what you can bring to the party and take it from there?
Sure. Mike, Oregon Association of Water Utilities. Mostly, I would think to reiterate that, I mean, it was mentioned, but we're a nonprofit, we're not regulatory or anything like that. So if you have issues, feel free to come to us. We have free assistance. If you're looking at connecting with other systems, a lot of our guys have relationships with these other systems if you don't. So we could be a good resource for that. And like we mentioned, we got the smoke blowers and stuff for the wastewater side. If you're looking at nice stuff, we have leak detection equipment. If you're on the water side, or sometimes wastewater side, usually the water side. And so, basically we're here to help. Like, we're really here to support all the water and wastewater systems in Oregon. I mean, we try and be a voice for you guys. So if you need help, let us know.
Thank you. Mark, you want to take your minute or two here?
Just to take a quick closing thought, I want to start by, first of all, thanking Commissioner Olson for pulling this together. This reflects a level of vision and sort of forethought that I truly appreciate. And it's the kind of work that, frankly, all of us need to do to be able to look down the road. What kind of organization do we want to be, and not do it in a reactive manner, but do it in a proactive manner. And to think about what kind of future do we want to create. So again, thank you for pulling together. Again, we're with SDAO, Special Districts Association. We've got a lot of resources, again, a lot of experience, a lot of team members that have been there and back. And so we're happy to help. We aren't quite as free as OAWU. We do have a charge for our services, but they're nominal. And first 8 hours of consulting time is free. We're more than happy to make that available to our members as well.
Thank you. All right, anybody from the state who's online or in the room, Melody, you want last word or anything here, and then we'll hit a couple more.
I will say, I expect a phone call or email from all of you. I did bring a stack of business cards, and I'm happy to chat with you about whatever issue you're facing. And please know, you don't have to go it alone. You don't have to know it all. That's my job. It's free to use, so use me as a resource. Even if business are going to help you, there's a good chance we can direct you to someone who can, such as OAWU, SDAO, DEQ, or others. So just start the process. Start your planning. Just take that first step, and we can help you do that with some funding more than likely, and help you get going. We don't like to deal with emergencies. We don't do it very well. We're very slow. So if you call us and say that you're leaking thousands of gallons of water in the middle of the night, we're not going to be able to probably do much for you. So let's get ahead of that, do that planning work so that we can start to, check a few of these breakages off your to-do list or whatever it is. So reach out to me, and I'm happy to come help.
How about online, Tiffany, would you like to offer a closing paragraph?
Can ask.
Thanks. So yeah, I just want to reiterate that I put in the chat, reach out to me if you're in Northwest Region. Even if you're not, I'm happy to help you find out who your compliance inspector is so that you can get some advice on infiltration inflow plans or anything else that's related to your NPDES permit or your other water quality permit from DEQ. We do have a Clean Water State revolving fund, but there's others who are more adept at speaking about the details of that than I am. And of course, in our partnership with Business Oregon and others, we do a fantastic job at one-stops and matching up the problems with the funding. And then I just want to say, if there's any questions or concerns you have about the certification process, please reach out to me as well. I'm happy to hear those questions and concerns and try to get answers for them. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let me ask our legal counsel, then we'll wind up with Colin.
I'm a member of the Fairview Water District, and I've seen the requests for board members. And I'm like, I guess everybody else, I'm not particularly interested in wanting to be a board member, and I understand that, but that brings up where the county gets involved mostly, I think, is when the boards of water districts, other districts don't have a quorum, and the county is then tasked with trying to fill the vacancies. So I encourage people, all of you, to try to keep us from that position by trying to maintain full boards. I don't know how else to say that. And the other thing to say is I encourage you to think about intergovernmental agreements for things like equipment and personnel. That's a good way to do it. It's pretty simple to put them together. Really, it's not a big task, but it's really not. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Colin, thank you for coming as well. Can you kind of summarize the COLPAC again and what your role might be in all this?
Well, thank you, Commissioner Olson. Thank you for getting or asking COLPAC to be in the room today, and appreciate everybody and listening to all these experts in your water districts. COLPAC is connective tissue. We partner with everyone, and we are, working routinely with Melanie in particular, who you can see is the all-star in the room. We partner with both member, no pressure, Melanie. And we partner with our member organizations directly, which Tillamook County is a member, but we really partner with anybody in any, our service, is to all entities within Tillamook County and all our counties. And so if there is a value add that COLPAC can provide through, again, force expansion in grant administration, developing convening opportunities, MOUs, IGAs, partnerships, we're happy to do that. As Mr. Knutson was noting about his organization, we are also a fee-funded organization, so we do have you know, a billable rate, but we often can find a grant that will help pay our salary to solve your problem. So we look forward to helping in any way we can. And thanks very much again.
Thank you, Colin. Okay, any final last words or observations or advice from anybody? Okay, so I think we will summarize this. Well, I don't think we will. We'll summarize what we've talked about today and some of the issues and maybe some comments that were made, much as we did for the first meeting. And depending on where we go and what I hear in the meantime, and I'd ask any of you to call me individually and say, hey, I didn't want to bring this up, or but how about this, or can you help us with that? And I know there are a couple of 3 issues on the north side in the city areas that I'm aware of, and so maybe maybe that should be a bigger issue for all of us as well. So we may meet again in September. We'll see. But if there are issues, if the county can do anything, please ask, because we might not be able to do anything, but we sure can't do anything if we don't know about it and you don't ask. And again, we're not a source of funds, but we can convene meetings like this and call in a few favors here and there and probably bring the right resources and smart people into the room. And that's basically how things work. If you get the right people on something, and, you know, I've always believed if you have smart people and adequate funding, you go home at 5. It's really pretty simple. Maybe not that simple, but that's kind of how it works. So I thank all of you for taking a couple hours out of your morning and coming into Tillamook, and I want you to take a cookie or 2 on the way out and get your blood sugar level, because you got to go back to work today. So with that, I'll thank you again for coming, and thank you, Commissioner Bell, for attending as well. And thanks to our expert people who were online and others, because you know, we all, as I've said now time and time again, we're all working for the same people, and we're trying to do the right thing. And in the case of you're trying to provide water and wastewater services, and the county's trying to do what we do and make sure things are held together. And so let's go out and do some good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug.
You're welcome.
City website.